All right, so let's dive right into these guides about saving money on household bills.
Yeah.
It's really amazing how much practical info is packed in here. I mean, everything from switching energy providers to like snagging appliance deals to understanding AI grants.
hmm
I mean, it's today is really about arming you with the knowledge to start saving today.
Yeah.
Like today. No more waiting around.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to see this level of interest in energy efficiency.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that the potential for savings in Ireland right now is significant. And we're not talking about pinching pennies here.
Right.
We're talking potentially hundreds, even thousands of euro back in your pocket annually.
Yeah, for sure. So first up, let's hit the ground running with something that feels like a no-brainer, switching energy providers.
Yeah.
One of these guides claimed you could save up to 300 euro per year just by making the switch.
Yeah.
That's a serious chunk of change. I mean, think what you could do with an extra 300 euro.
It's true. It all boils down to competition, right? The Irish energy market was deregulated, so you've got all these providers vying for your business.
Yeah.
And how do they try to win you over? By offering competitive rates and enticing deals.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
The guys also mentioned a bunch of comparison websites, bonkers.ie, switcher.ie, and a few others. Are those really the best way to go about it?
Absolutely. Using a comparison website it's like having a personal shopper for your energy. They do all the heavy lifting. They compare tariffs. They compare plans from all the major providers based on your usage.
Okay.
But this is a big but. Don't just jump on the first cheap rate you see. You need to look at it's like anything else. You got to read the fine print.
So true. It's not always about the lowest unit price, is it?
Exactly. You're exactly right. Look at things like standing charges, look at any discounts they might be offering, and even the contract length.
Okay.
Some deals might seem great on the surface, but they lock you into a long-term contract with really, really hefty exit fees.
That's a really good point. I'll admit I've been, guilty of just looking at that initial price tag. So always read the fine print.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about appliances. The guides highlighted that energy-efficient appliances could save Irish households up to 500 euro annually.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It is. It's all about those energy ratings.
Yeah.
You see on your appliances A to G. Well, now there's a new A to G scale, but it's the same concept. The higher the rating, the less energy it uses, which means lower bills for you.
That makes sense. But do those ratings really translate to such big savings? I mean, can you give me an example?
Let's talk fridges, because everybody's got a fridge.
Yeah?
An A-rated fridge could save you over 100 euro annually compared to an older, less efficient model like a G1.
Wow.
Over its lifespan, that's a potential saving of over 1,000 euro.
I never thought about it like that. Okay, so besides the fridge, what other energy hogs should we be mindful of?
Washing machines, dishwashers are big ones,
Okay.
especially if you have a busy household.
Right.
And ovens. A small upgrade to an energy-efficient model can make a surprisingly big difference.
So really it's about being mindful of those energy ratings and then looking for the efficient models when it's time to replace something.
Yep.
Great advice. Now, let's shift gears to something that's always intrigued me. Programmable thermostats. In theory, they sound like a great way to save energy, but I'm curious, do they live up to the hype?
They absolutely do. The U.S. Department of Energy, and they know a thing or two about energy, right?
Right.
They found that a programmable thermostat can knock about 10% off your annual heating and cooling costs.
Wow.
For the average Irish household, that's 200 to 300 euro in savings every year.
Okay, now you're talking my language, saving money.
Yeah.
But how do they actually work? Is it like some complex programming thing?
No, not at all.
Okay.
They're designed to be user-friendly. You program them to adjust the temperature based on your schedule. So, for example, you can set it to lower the heat at night or when you're at work, and then warm the house back up before you wake up or come home.
So you're not wasting energy heating an empty house.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
And there are different types. You've got your basic digital programmable thermostats, super affordable, easy to use. And then you've got your smart thermostats,
Okay.
which connect to your Wi-Fi. You can control them from your phone. They often have learning capabilities, so they'll adapt to your routine.
It's like having a little assistant for your home's temperature.
Exactly. Exactly.
But let's be real, not everyone's trying to turn their house into a smart home.
Right.
For those of us who prefer a simpler approach,
Mm-hmm.
what are the optimal temperature settings?
The guides recommend aiming for a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius. When you're home, when you're there, you're awake.
Okay.
And then when you're asleep or out of the house, drop it down, but not too much, maybe like 15 to 17 degrees.
Got it. So small adjustments can make a big difference. Speaking of making our homes smarter and safer, let's talk security.
Okay.
I'm a big believer in peace of mind, but alarm systems can get pricey. Do our guides offer any budget-friendly security tips?
They do, they do. You'd be surprised by the range of cost-effective options available today. You've got DIY systems, incredibly user-friendly, often packed with features.
Okay.
And then you've got your more traditional, professionally installed systems for, if you want that extra layer.
Can you break those down a bit further? Like, what are the pros and cons of each?
Sure. So DIY systems, you're talking about things like Ring or SimpliSafe.
Okay.
They let you be your own installer, which saves you a good chunk of change up front.
Right.
They often come with motion detectors, door and window sensors, even integration with security cameras.
Okay.
The trade-off is, generally you're responsible for monitoring and responding to any alarms.
So you're trading some peace of mind for those cost savings.
Potentially, yeah.
What about professionally installed systems?
You're talking companies like PhoneWatch, HomeSecure. They're known for their 24/7 professional monitoring, which, as I said, adds that extra layer of security and peace of mind. Of course, that comes at a price. You'll have installation fees, and you'll have those ongoing monthly monitoring costs.
It's about finding that balance, budget, and your desired level of security. But it's great to know that there are options out there for every need and budget.
Absolutely.
Now let's dive into a topic I know is on everyone's minds, SEAI grants.
Okay.
These seem like a fantastic resource for homeowners looking to make those energy efficiency upgrades.
Yeah, they are. SEAI grants are a game changer for Irish homeowners. The Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, they're really pushing for a greener future, and these grants are a way to incentivize and support homeowners in making those changes.
And there's a whole range of grants available, right? I'm seeing insulation upgrades to heat pumps to solar panels. It's actually quite impressive.
It is. It's fantastic that they cater to a wide variety of needs and budgets. But let's break it down a bit because each grant has its own criteria and application process. It's not one size fits all.
Makes sense. So first things first, who's eligible for these grants? Can anyone just apply?
Generally speaking, most grants are available to homeowners whose homes were built and occupied before 2011, although it's 2021 for heat pump grants.
Okay.
The main thing is your home is your primary residence and that you haven't already received funding for that specific upgrade.
No double dipping.
Exactly. Another key thing to keep in mind is the Building Energy Rating, or BER, assessment.
Right.
You'll need to have one done after the work is completed.
Right. The BER, that's how they measure a home's energy efficiency here, right?
Yeah. Precisely. And it's all part of making sure that those upgrades are delivering on their promises.
So let's say I'm new to this whole grant game. What's the general application process like? Is it a bureaucratic nightmare?
The SEAI has actually made it remarkably straightforward.
Okay, good.
First, you choose the upgrade you're interested in. Then you get a quote from an SEAI-registered contractor. That's very important. They need to be registered.
Okay.
Once you've got your quote, you apply online or by post.
So it's crucial to have that SEAI registered contractor on board from the get-go.
Absolutely. Once the grant is approved, which typically takes a few weeks, you can get the work done.
Okay.
After that, you'll submit the necessary documentation, including your receipts and your post-upgrade BER certificate. Then it's a waiting game. Typically takes several weeks for the grant payment to come through.
It sounds like a pretty smooth process, especially considering the savings. However, I know some people might feel overwhelmed by all the paperwork, the thought of navigating it all themselves. Is there any support available for those who might need a helping hand?
You read my mind. That's where the SEAI's one-stop shop service comes in.
Okay, tell me everything. That sounds too good to be true.
It's a brilliant program. It really is. You work with a one-stop shop provider. They take care of everything.
Wow.
From the initial home energy assessment to the grant applications, even coordinating the contractors, your one-stop shop.
Wow, so they hold your hand through the entire process. I can see why that would be appealing. What are the main benefits of going down this route, besides the convenience?
Well, apart from that convenience, you're also tapping into their expertise.
That's true.
They've done this countless times, so they know the ins and outs. They know the most effective solutions for different types of homes.
So it's not just about getting the work done. It's about getting that expert guidance.
Oh.
What types of grants does the one-stop shop cover? Is it a limited selection?
Not at all. It covers most of the major ones. We're talking heat pump systems, solar PV panels, heating controls, insulation, you name it.
So whether you're after a single upgrade or a complete makeover, the one-stop shop can guide you. This is incredibly valuable information.
It really is. And here's another great thing about it. The One-Stop Shop program aims to help you achieve at least a B2 BER rating for your home.
Which is amazing, because a higher BER rating means not only a more energy efficient and comfortable home, but potentially a higher property value. It's an investment.
It is, it is.
Now let's talk money. What kind of financial assistance can homeowners realistically expect through the One-Stop Shop? Is it just grants, or are there other options?
That's a great question. They've got you covered on multiple fronts. Not only do you have access to those generous SEAI grants through the program, they can also help you secure low-cost green loans from participating financial institutions.
Okay.
So they're really trying to make it as attainable as possible.
That's fantastic. It really sounds like this is a game changer, especially for those who, as we said, might be overwhelmed or daunted by this. It sounds like they really provide the guidance, the expertise, and the financial assistance to make those energy-efficient dreams a reality. Now let's switch gears and shine a light on a topic that often sparks some curiosity and questions: solar energy.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of our listeners might be wondering, does Ireland really get enough sun to make solar panels worthwhile?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is the question. So let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll debunk some myths about sunshine here and explore those options. Stay tuned. And we're back, ready to shed some light on solar energy in Ireland. Before the break, we were talking about that one-stop shop program, but let's address the elephant in the room. Do we really get enough sun here to make solar panels worthwhile?
It's the question, isn't it?
It is the question. A lot of people think you need to be in, sunny Spain or something.
You'd think, wouldn't you, with solar panels?
Yeah.
But the reality is a bit brighter than that.
So spill the beans. Can those of us in the Emerald Isle realistically use the power of the sun?
Absolutely. While we might not have year-round sunshine like some other places, Ireland actually gets a decent amount of sun.
Okay.
We get about 70% as much solar energy as those, really sunny countries.
That's much more than I would guessed. But what about our famous cloudy days? Do they still work when it's not sunny?
That's where technology comes in. Modern solar panels are so efficient, even on cloudy days. They're designed to capture that sunlight even when it's diffused. And here's something interesting. Cooler temperatures can actually make solar panels more efficient.
Now that's what I call a silver lining to Irish weather. It's amazing to think that even with our changeable weather, we can still use the power of the sun.
Okay, so we've established that they work here. But what about the different types of panels? I know there's more than one.
You're right. It's not one size fits all. There's a variety of options to suit everybody. The most common type is the photovoltaic, or PV, panel. And within that, you've got monocrystalline, polycrystalline, and thin film panels, each with their own, pros and cons.
Okay, break it down for our listeners who are ready to jump on the solar bandwagon. What's the deal with monocrystalline panels?
Monocrystalline panels are kind of the top tier. They have the highest efficiency rates, so they generate the most electricity from the same amount of sunlight.
Which is great if you have a limited roof space. And they also tend to last longer. Plus, they have that sleek black design, which can be nice.
They sound like the Rolls-Royce of solar panels. High efficiency, long lifespan, slick design. What's the catch?
Well, they are generally a bit pricier than other types of panels.
Right.
But that initial investment often pays off because they produce more energy.
Makes sense. You get what you pay for. What about those polycrystalline panels you mentioned?
Polycrystalline panels are great if you're budget conscious.
I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
They're a little less efficient than monocrystalline, but they're still really good at generating electricity.
Okay.
And they have that more traditional blue appearance.
So a solid choice for those looking for a good balance between price and performance. And what about those thin film panels? What makes them stand out?
Thin film panels are the lightweight and flexible option. They're not as efficient as monocrystalline or polycrystalline.
Okay.
But that flexibility means they're great for curved surfaces or where weight is a concern.
Got it. So more of a kind of specialized option. We've covered those PV panels, but you also mentioned solar thermal panels. What's their superpower?
Solar thermal panels are all about heating your water.
Okay.
They use the sun's energy for that, so they take some of the load off your water heater.
Right.
Really efficient and can really cut back on those water heating bills, especially in the summer.
Free hot showers, courtesy of the sun. I love it. And then there are these hybrid systems I've heard about.
Yeah.
What's the scoop on those?
You're talking about the hybrid PVT systems. They're like the multitaskers. They actually combine both PV and solar thermal technology, which means you can generate electricity and heat your water at the same time.
It's like having your cake and eating it too. generating electricity and heating water all in one. So, what's not to love? Speaking of things we love, let's talk about money. Solar panels sound amazing, but let's be real, they're not exactly cheap. What kind of investment are we talking about here?
You're right, the initial cost can seem like a lot, but it's important to think of solar panels as a long-term investment. On average, a 3 kilowatt P system in Ireland, after you factor in the SAAI grant, it'll cost somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 euro.
Okay, so that is a good chunk of change, but I guess like any home improvement, you have to look at the bigger picture.
Exactly, you need to think long-term. Think about it this way. The payback period for a solar panel system here is usually between 7 and 10 years.
So after that initial investment, you're essentially getting free electricity and even making money because you can sell excess energy back to the grid.
That's right, and don't forget about the lifespan of these things. We're talking 25, even 30 years. That's a lot of years of free electricity, or at least much cheaper electricity.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Now let's talk about those financial incentives because everyone loves a good deal. This is where the SEAI grants come into play, right?
Exactly. The Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland has a great grant, specifically to make solar energy more accessible. It's called the SEAI Solar PV Grant.
Okay, hit me with the details. How much are we talking?
I'll break it down. The grant amount depends on the size of the system you get. It's measured in kilowatt peak, KLEP. That's basically the system's maximum power output.
So the bigger the system, the bigger the grant.
Generally, yes. For systems up to 2 kilowatt, which is pretty common, you can get 900 euro for every kilowatt peak.
Okay,
So a 2 kilowatt system, that's a 1800 grant.
that's incredible. What if you need a bigger system, though?
The SEAI has got you covered there too. Between 2 kilowatt and 4 kilowatt, you'll get 300 euro for each additional kilowatt peak on top of that initial amount. So for a 4 kilowatt peak system, the maximum grant is 2400.
Okay, so there's definitely an incentive to go bigger if your budget and energy needs allow for it. So let's say I'm sold on the idea. What's the next step? How do I actually apply?
The most important thing is to choose a good installer. They need to be SEAI registered. That's crucial.
Okay, so finding that SEI registered installer is non-negotiable.
Definitely not. They are your solar partner in crime.
I like it.
They'll assess your needs, recommend the right system, and work with you on the grant application.
So they're with me every step of the way.
Exactly. They handle the paperwork, submit it to the SEAI. Once the grant is approved, they'll schedule the installation.
That definitely takes the guesswork out of it. What happens after the solar panels are all set up and running? Any other paperwork?
Just a couple of things. Your installer will arrange a BER assessment after the installation. That's just to document the energy improvements. Then they'll submit all the final paperwork to the SEAI.
And then the grant payment, I assume I don't need to chase anyone down.
Nope, they've made it easy. The grant amount is taken off your final bill by the installer.
That's convenient. Okay, so we've covered the grant, but what is that the installation itself? Is it going to turn my house upside down for weeks?
It's usually pretty quick, maybe 1 to 2 days, depending on the size and complexity.
Yeah.
A good installer will be efficient. Keep the disruption to a minimum.
That's good to know. Sounds pretty straightforward. But once they are up and running, what's the maintenance like? Am I up on the roof every week cleaning them?
No, not at all. Solar panels are very low maintenance. Rain usually does a pretty good job of naturally cleaning the panels.
Okay, good.
It is a good idea to get them professionally checked and cleaned maybe once a year, just to make sure everything's running smoothly.
One less chore on the to-do list. So we've talked about the initial cost and the grant. Are there any other costs, any hidden fees or anything?
That's a good question. The great thing about solar panels is that, unlike some other home improvements, there aren't really any ongoing fees or charges.
Okay.
Once they're in, they're yours.
I like the sound of that. So really, it's the initial cost minus the grant, and then potentially that annual maintenance.
Exactly. There is one optional thing I should mention, though. Battery storage.
Right, because they generate electricity during the day, but we tend to use more in the evenings.
Exactly. A solar battery lets you store that excess energy from the day so you can use it later.
Like having your own little power plant. They don't come cheap, though, do they?
Battery tech is getting better all the time, but it does add to the cost. However, batteries do give you more energy independence. You could even go completely off-grid if that's something you wanted to do, depending on your usage, of course.
So an investment to consider for those who really want to be self-sufficient. Now, what about the environment? I mean, for many people, that's a big motivator for switching to solar.
Right.
What kind of impact are we talking about here?
Switching to solar is a fantastic way to reduce your carbon footprint. A typical 3 kilowatt system, like we talked about, can save you around 1.3 tons of CO2 emissions a year. To put that in perspective, that's like not driving your car for 6 months.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. It's amazing to think of making that switch not only helps your bank balance, but it's good for the planet too. And speaking of good for your bank balance, let's not forget that you can actually sell your excess energy back to the national grid, right?
Absolutely. That's the beauty of Ireland's microgeneration support scheme. It benefits homeowners and helps create a more sustainable energy grid for everybody.
It's a win-win. Now, before we move on to other ways to be more energy efficient, I just want to address some concerns people might have about solar panels, because I'm sure there are a few.
Yeah.
I think it's only natural when you're making a big change to your house. So let's tackle them. One I hear a lot is about, how they look. Are they gonna look out of place on my roof?
I get that. It used to be that solar panels weren't exactly, the most attractive things.
Right.
But things have definitely changed. The technology's come such a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
You can get some really discreet panels now. Some of them are actually really stylish.
So it's not just about function. It's about, finding ones that actually look good.
Absolutely. And there's a lot more choice these days in terms of, colors, designs. You can even get those all black panels that we talked about. They blend in really well with, more modern houses.
That's good to know. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've addressed that. What about practicality? What about if you don't live in, the sunniest part of Ireland?
Right.
Is it still a viable option?
It's a good question. And, it's true, some areas get more sun than others.
Yeah.
But modern solar panels are designed to work in all kinds of weather, even cloudy days, like we talked about. They can still generate some electricity.
So even if you don't have constant sunshine, you can still benefit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where, again, it's so important to get that advice from a qualified installer.
Yep.
Because they can look at your house, your location, which way your roof faces, if there's any shade, and figure out what's best.
So it's about kind of tailoring it to the individual house.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
Okay, what about durability?
Okay.
Because Irish weather, it's not exactly known for being, always mild.
That's one way of putting it.
How do they hold up?
They're tougher than you think. Solar panels are built to withstand a lot. They go through rigorous testing. They can withstand impacts, strong winds, even extreme temperatures.
Wow, so they're like little warriors out there.
They are. And to give you even more peace of mind, most manufacturers offer really good warranties. We're talking 25 years or more.
So you're covered.
You're protected.
That's really good to know. Okay, so we've covered a lot about solar panels, but I want to zoom back out to the SEAI grants for a moment. We've talked about the one for solar panels specifically, but there are others, right, that homeowners could kind of use together to get even more savings.
You're absolutely right. The SEAI has a whole range of grants for all sorts of energy upgrades. And the great thing is you can often combine them.
Stacking those savings, what are some of the popular pairings that people go for?
One of the most popular and effective is to pair solar panels with a heat pump system.
That makes sense. We talked about heat pumps earlier, but just to remind everyone, how do they work again and why are they such a good fit with solar?
Right. So heat pumps are really efficient, both for heating your home and your water.
Yeah,
They don't actually create heat, they just move it.
right, okay.
So they're taking it from the air, the ground, or water, and then they're basically just transferring it into your home.
Very clever.
And because they need electricity to do this, using solar panels to power them is just it's a perfect match.
It's a clean energy dream team. So what other upgrades are good to pair with solar panels?
Insulation, attic insulation, wall insulation. The SEAI has grants to help with those too.
Yeah.
And obviously, a well-insulated house means you need less energy to heat it.
It all ties together, lower bills, less impact on the environment. Everyone's happy.
Exactly. And it's not just about the solar panels, it's about making your home more comfortable all year round.
For sure, yeah. Well, before we wrap up this deep dive into energy savings, I have to bring back the one-stop shop service. Again, I know we've mentioned it, but it sounds like such an amazing resource for people, especially if they're feeling a bit, overwhelmed with everything we've talked about.
It really is. It just makes the whole process of doing these upgrades so much easier.
And it's not just for big projects like solar panels, is it?
No, not at all. Even if it's just something like, upgrading your insulation, new windows, or you need a new boiler, they can help.
Fantastic. So for our listeners at home who are raring to go, how do they connect with a one-stop shop provider?
The SEAI website's the best place to start. They have a whole section dedicated to the one-stop shop service. You can find a list of providers there all across the country.
Perfect, and we'll be sure to include that link in the show notes. Well, there you have it. We've covered so much in this deep dive, from simple changes like switching providers and being energy smart with appliances, to those bigger investments like solar panels, heat pumps,
We've looked at grants, we've talked about the one-stop shop.
busted some myths about renewable energy.
Hopefully.
I think we've shown that being energy efficient, it's not just about saving the planet, it's about saving money too.
Absolutely. It's about making those choices that are good for the environment and for your pocket.
Yeah.
And there's loads of help out there to do it.
Yeah, no more excuses.
No more excuses. Let's all do our bit.
Well said. That's it for today's Deck Dive. Thanks for listening. We hope you found it useful. Every little bit counts.
Absolutely. We can all make a difference.
Thanks for listening.